Hi and welcome along to this week's episode of CannaChat, where we casually chat about all things cannabis related. We appreciate you tuning in.
All views expressed in this podcast are the opinions of the host and in no way medical advice.
Hi and welcome along to the first episode of CannaChat. With me today I have Tim.
My name's Tim West. I thought one of the reasons why we'd work well together on this podcast is because as much as I am a big advocate for freedom of choice, I still have a lot to learn about CBD and cannabis and cannabinoids and all those things.
Well, there's a lot to learn.
Sure is.
Right, well, we'll start at the start. Basics is cannabis is a plant. That's the basic thing of it. I mean, the bit that gets me is the fact it's still illegal in so many countries. It's a natural plant, but yet it still becomes the last option for so many people's medicine when it shouldn't. It was actually made illegal in the UK as a medicine a few years ago, but it's not prescribed to very, very few because very few doctors can actually openly prescribe it. It's legal in so many countries around the world now for obvious reasons. It should be legal. It's a plant and nobody should have it restricted from them, especially when there's so many benefits from it. Not only is plant beneficial for medicine and for health, but it's beneficial as regards fibres. You can make all sorts of things out of it: clothes, rope, hempcrete, multiple uses, over 100 uses for cannabis now. But medicine would definitely be the most beneficial as regards my eyes.
Do you want to hear something funny?
Yeah.
I have hemp conditioner in my hair today.
There's so many hemp products on the market now, it's mind-blowing. There's hemp in everything: toothpaste, face products, hair products. There's hemp in everything that's being marketed in so many products nowadays. And it's clearly because it's beneficial too. What
would the benefit be in like shampoo?
It can strengthen your hair. Hemp will strengthen your hair. That's the main benefit of putting it into a shampoo.
Okay.
But I mean, it can be put into so many products now. It really is mind blowing. I mean, there's health drinks with it. There's like I say, hair products, face products. There's so many different things for hemp now. People make face creams themselves at home. All these things can be done. They've done it for years. People making medicines and things at home with cannabis. It's just the fact that legality has slowed a lot of people down, obviously, over here.
The legality side?
Yeah, to me, there's no reason it should still be legal. I mean, it was made illegal in the early 1900s, and since then, the stigma is still attached to it. CBD being legalised a few years ago certainly broke a stigma down a lot, but I feel there's still a lot of stigma there, especially with older people. The stigma is just attached there because it's been drummed into us for that many years. And it's hard to shake that stigma off with a lot of people until they actually see the benefits of cannabis and realise that we've actually an endocannabinoid system in our body. Once people realise that tends to be the key of when people realise that we should have this. And it sort of rings alarm bells of how it's been made illegal for so long. When you have an endocannabinoid system but you're not allowed something to feed that system, something morally wrong about that.
Yeah. So endocannabinoid system, so I assume if you were not using that system, like it would you call it dormant?
Yeah, pretty much. Your endocannabinoid system will go dormant if it's not being used. When this happens and you start using cannabis or CBD based products, it can take 3 to 5 days for your endocannabinoid system to actually awaken again and start to work. That's the only time it should take a few days for it to actually start working. Otherwise it should work immediately, but most people's systems tend to go dormant when it's not being used. It's like anything in your body, it doesn't be used, it just goes dormant. A lot of problems, I believe, do come down to endocannabinoid deficiency. I mean, the endocannabinoid system is receptors in your body. They're on your nerve endings, they're in your brain, they're whole way throughout your whole system in your body, just as it would be your immune system. If you have something, any sort of system, it surely needs fed. It's like a fuel system in your car, it needs fuel to run. It's like the oil system, it needs oil to run. It's very similar to your body. We need cannabinoids to run at peak and keep your immune system at peak. Without something that you need health-wise, your immune system will never be at its peak. It will always be low. So if you're not feeding your endocannabinoid system, then your immune system isn't running at its peak that it can. And that's clearly not beneficial for anybody. So we should all be feeding ourselves with cannabinoids daily, I believe. It sort of goes hand in hand, explains about deficiencies when you're feeding so many people CBD and cannabinoids that have issues. So for example, if someone has fibromyalgia and they start taking CBD and they get relief from the fibromyalgia and the ailments of the fibromyalgia, it sort of goes hand in hand, proves that it's a bit of a deficiency that right. It is treating it. If it's treating it so well, it sort of gives you a bit of faith that it is a deficiency. It's causing the problem initially.
That's very interesting that you said in particular it's linked to the immune system. You know, given what we just lived through there, 2 years of absolute mania and paranoia about a virus.
Yep.
Is there a lot of research that backs that the cannabinoid system is linked to immunity?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of research in the last few years into one of the main cannabinoids, which is CBG. Right. CBG is actually the mother of all cannabinoids. So when a plant starts growing, CBG is the main cannabinoid in that plant, and over time, CBG will actually convert into CBD, THC, and all the other cannabinoids. So it actually does convert into other cannabinoids. So by the time the plant has finished processing, there's very little CBG left. But CBG is one of the most beneficial cannabinoids out of them all, to be honest. Reason being is it's antiviral, antibacterial, and a lot of the other cannabinoids aren't. So that's two of the main benefits that CBG would have over the other cannabinoids. CBD certainly has a lot of benefits, but to me, CBG is one of the main ones, and it's going to be recognised as one of the main ones over the next few years.
Wow. Did not know that.
Yeah, CBG is still sort of under the radar for a lot of companies and a lot of people researching cannabinoids, but it's certainly coming to the forefront recently, and if not, it will do.
Because I've seen, obviously, CBD products have been around on shelf. You see them everywhere. You see them from B&M bargains to high-end Holland and Barrett stores. And I know I've always wondered, why would I spend, I'm sure there's an obvious answer to this, of course, but why would I spend 30, 40, 50 pound on a product as opposed to 1, 2, 3 pound, Yeah, on
another vitamin type product.
Obvious answer to that, do you?
Again, there's so many different products out there in the market, and the quality of products is different too. I mean, so many companies just jumped on the bandwagon when CBD was made legal and bought the cheapest form of CBD they could and put it into a product so as they could put it on the shelf and say there's CBD in it. There's different ways to go about this. There's higher quality ways to make products, and that's the way it should be done. You should always make CBD products to the best quality that you can to help people, because at the end of the day, it's a health industry, and the people's health should always be at the forefront of this, not financial gain.
Just sorry to back up slightly for people listening. You say cannabinoids, I assume that means CBD is a cannabinoid and CBG.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So could you tell us a wee bit more? What is a cannabinoid exactly? Is THC a cannabinoid?
THC is a cannabinoid. I mean, there's well over 100 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant, and we don't know half the benefits of half of them yet. We've only sort of most research has been done on CBD, obviously because of the legality of it. There's been a lot of research done on THC in other countries because, I mean, cannabis is legal in other countries. So many other countries, just the UK, we're still a wee bit backward here, I think. But in a lot of other countries, they're openly able to do research on THC. They're finding that THC is very beneficial for epilepsy, cancer treatment, things like that. So THC has a big place in the health industry, but obviously THC has to be balanced too, because you can go the wrong way with THC and it can be psychoactive if you're using too much at too young an age as well. So everything's to do with balance, but every cannabinoid can be beneficial if used correctly and balanced right.
That's really interesting. Yes, I've always thought of THC basically as the let's get high component, right? It has, I've never heard of any medical benefit apart from maybe, I think you've told me before about killing cancer cells, but at very, very high strengths. So other than that, I thought THC was basically recreational drug.
That's the problem. THC has always been demonized as much as it can be by the government, and that's the main reason to try and keep cannabis illegal. But the benefits of THC is really mind-blowing. I mean, THC can actually cause cancer cells to commit suicide in themselves. That's what it does. So there's no reason it should be demonized. Like I say, everything can be abused. We can abuse cheeseburgers if we eat 20 of them a day. It's the same with THC.
I've been there.
You can abuse it. Everything can be abused. I mean, it's the same with alcohol. A glass of wine at night would be very beneficial, but you drink 20 glasses at night, it's not just as beneficial. It becomes a problem. It's the same with THC. Everything in balance. And I think that the demonizing of it needs to stop, because it is so beneficial for epilepsy and cancer, and so many things can be treated well with THC. But I think there's other cannabinoids certainly are more beneficial with regards to keeping a good balance of health. CBG certainly being the main one of them all.
So you say, that's interesting. I hadn't heard, or have I heard? If I have, I've forgotten about epilepsy. So how, in what way can THC,
the THC can
help?
Can just settle down anybody with fits. So basically it's so beneficial that someone taking a fit can take THC under their tongue where there's two sublingual glands. It absorbs into those sublingual glands and it'll just settle the fit altogether. It's the same with Parkinson's and things like that. Parkinson's, where someone's severe Parkinson's, it can just settle them down within minutes. There's very few other medications will do that. Certainly not while keeping them switched on in their brain.
That's amazing. I've honestly I didn't know that. I mean, would you be talking about, like, you can't just smoke some weed if you're right, so like how would that be administered? Out of interest, is it oils or tablet or what way?
That's a very, very good question, Tim, because this is a problem where people don't understand how to use the medicine. A lot of young people think, oh, I'm smoking a joint, so my health's going to be fantastic. It's not that simple. This has to be processed in the oils, and when it's processed in the oil, it's high strength. Now, people treating cancers are using high strength oils, usually RSO or FICO. And FICO just stands for full extract cannabis oil. RSO just stands for Rick Simpson oil, who was one of the main founders of the oil, who started establishing and making the oil and spreading it worldwide. And this is a problem with the UK government keeping cannabis as illegal. That's why they had to change things up a few years ago and change the law and make it legal medicinally, because it's okay blocking something from people if they don't realise the benefit. But when people realise the health benefit of something, it becomes a bit different when you're blocking that from them. Do you know what I mean? It's wrong. It's morally wrong when it's a medicine that can be used and treated right. Like I say, everything can be abused, so you don't make it illegal. Like I say, you don't make burgers illegal just because you can eat so many in a day. It's not the way to go about it. Things need regulated. And while it's not regulated, there's people out there making these oils and claiming to be Rick Simpson oil and trying to treat people with cancer, and they're not done right. So you need to understand, if this isn't done right, people are making it so it's not done right. There's still residual alcohol in it. You shouldn't really be taking that, ingesting it. So there's so many problems with a black market. And that's the problem at the minute. We need regulation. Regulation will just kill all the black market problems. People can help their own health issues, and it just makes so much more sense.
I agree entirely. Like I mentioned earlier, I would be an advocate for legalize every drug, inverted commas, because as you say, the fact that we choose alcohol, for sake of argument, as our drug of choice every weekend, 18-year-olds go out and get pissed senseless on alcohol.
Yep.
I mean, you just have to walk down the street on a Friday, Saturday night, and not to get too dark about it, but it's quite depressing.
It is disturbing.
Whereas I've known a lot of people that have smoked a lot of cannabis, and I've never seen anyone do anything but basically eat a lot of crisps and really just sort of be more loving maybe to each other.
Yeah.
So my question would be, like, I'm totally with you. Legalize it and what was the word you used? Regulate?
Yeah,
right?
Regulate it for sure.
And in my mind, it's like, well, then the government could tax it too, right? Because they tax everything else.
Yep.
So why are they not doing that? Sure, like, instead of spending money fighting it, why not make money and make it safer? And I don't understand.
This is the bit I don't understand fully, because I don't get it. To me, I thought they wanted to make sure everything was in place, so as the profits were going into the right pockets with big pharma and so on. I presumed that a few years ago. I would have hoped they would have had everything in place by now to get their profits where they wanted it, because that's what they're all about. They're not about health first, they're about profit first, sadly. That's just their industry. So they need to make sure big pharma has its pockets fairly filled with the money coming out from the industry first, rather than small time people who have been putting the work in for years. And that's just the way things like this go. But I don't even know if that's the main reason anymore, because to me they should have had everything in place for that by now to actually push it out to the public. I mean, Colorado done it. Colorado was in serious financial problems until they legalized cannabis, and then they made that much money from cannabis in the first year. They actually got handed tax money back from the government because they had overpaid the limit on tax.
Wow.
And from that money that the industry got handed back, they put into schools and hospitals. So that's what was done with that extra money, because the industry didn't need it. The industry had made that much money from cannabis in that first year.
That's absolutely amazing. Well, how did Colorado manage to not need to be lining the pockets of certain big pharma?
I don't understand how it worked. I mean, big pharma is still making a lot of money over there, clearly, but the tax on the cannabis industry over in America is shocking. That is one of the main reasons a lot of them find it hard to make money now, because the taxing has went up in the last few years on it. They're taxing at a higher rate now, and a lot of the small time companies coming up are finding it very hard to make it, where the big companies with the big funds and stuff and the big shares are finding it a lot easier to excel in this industry, where the smaller ones find it hard to pay the big tax bills, and they're finding it harder to survive in the industry. So they're slowly being filtered out that way.
That's a real shame.
It is a real shame, because they're the ones with the passion. It's the people that have been researching and using cannabis for years that have the passion behind the plant itself. The other people who are stepping into the industry now, sadly, are just stepping into it for money. And like I say, that should never be at the forefront of a health industry. Never.
Did I hear, you'll know this obviously, a term like like Gold Rush, but Green Rush or
Green Rush, yeah,
Green
they call it
Gold
the
or-
big Green Rush. The Green Rush is what it's called.
Is that
That's
what
what
it
happened
is?
when it hit America. When they legalized it, it was Colorado, then it went to another state, and then another state, and another state, and so they just called it the big Green Rush because it was just bringing financial freedom for every city it went into. And just so quickly. I mean, shops were opening, cannabis shops were opening, dispensaries. As soon as dispensaries open, there's queues right down the block. I mean, hundreds of people queuing in to get into a dispensary when it's opening. There's a guy called Burner opened a brand called Cookies a lot of years ago. Every time he opens a new shop in a new state, there's a queue around the block from the night before. People are sleeping outside the store to get it. This is iPhone sort of material, like the
Right,
queues.
yeah.
So it shows the popularity for it. Do you know what I mean? But it's the fact that people are finally able to live as they should be able to live. I think is the main reason they want to get out and get in these dispensaries, because they should have been able to do this years ago. It's like someone walking in and buying their bottle of wine. You should be able to do it with cannabis too, recreationally, if you want to as well. Certainly there's people going in these stores medicinally, but there's a lot of them going in for recreational use as well, and rightly so. They're entitled to do that. They're entitled to drop their shoulders at night after a hard day's work if that's the case, and they want to have a joint instead of having a glass of wine.
Sure. I know this is only a quick one we're doing today, Lee, so can I just ask you one more question?
Yeah, certainly, go ahead.
This is just one real burning question that I've always wondered. So I've known quite a lot of people, and again, I know we talked about different strains, so I think this is probably where this is going, but I've known people that have ended up quite bad shapes from smoking in particular, would be their form of ingestion of said weed, but they smoke too much, and it goes wrong. They get actual paranoia, proper paranoia, things can go too far, and you mentioned balance earlier, so and I know, again, we talked about this recently, about there's different strains, and it also ties into, if it was legalized and regulated, maybe then you'd be able to see what you're getting, but that's a huge problem at the moment, as you mentioned, with the black market. People are just saying, give me whatever 30-50 pounds of weed, please, and then they get it, and maybe they're young and it's way too high strength, and it's fucking people up. I mean, I think we've basically covered this, but do you have anything else on that?
You almost covered it yourself with your question. I mean, what you're saying is right. It's down to regulation again. If it was a regulated market, you could walk in and you could see the levels of THC, the levels of CBD in each plant, and that will balance itself out, because CBD is actually anti-psychoactive, where THC is psychoactive. So if someone has too much THC and they ingest CBD, it'll actually balance that out slightly for them and take it.
That's really interesting. See, I know that because you've told me that before, but I bet most people who smoke do not
Wouldn't
know
realise
that
that,
at
yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So CBD actually essentially counteracts
the THC.
the psychoactive properties of the THC.
Yeah.
How important is that to know that?
It's very important, especially for the younger ones, because the younger ones don't understand this. A lot of them just see weed as weed. A lot of them in the cannabis industry now don't, because they see all these strains. They're looking for all these fancy American Cali strains coming in now, and
With cool names.
yeah, that's exactly
What's a
what they're
couple of
looking
cool
for. A cool name and a cool bag with a glittery front on it. And sadly, the reality of that is that a lot of these strains are high THC strains. Again, they're going to cause psychosis, like you say, in high amounts. As much as I'm an advocate for all cannabis, I'd be the first to say too much THC is bad for anybody, especially at a young age. It can cause psychosis and problems. Again, I've had problems in my younger days myself when I smoked too much, and I learned that myself. I learned that cannabis was benefit me medicinally, but when I used too much and went over the threshold of what I should be using, then I started actually increasing my anxiety rather than decreasing it. So that I had to learn that balance myself through experience, and that's what caused me to start looking into different strains, and then seeing the different levels and different strains, and figured that out, that's obviously down to the CBD level, THC level, the CBG level, all different cannabinoids in each strain. And you find strains that are good for certain things. So there's strains very good for anxiety, strains good for pain, strains good for sleeping. It's all down to certain strains are indica, certain strains are sativa, and certain strains are hybrid. So an indica would be a nighttime strain. It'll be very heavy and relaxing. Then you can get sativas. Sativas have been more sort of creative. People like art and sort of creating art and things like that. That would be a type of strain you would use to get creative if you wanted to do something like that. And then a hybrid would basically be a balance of any two in the middle. So it could be 60% sativa and 40% indica, or vice versa. So it'll be a wee bit more tern or a wee bit more alert. Just depends. But each one of them has different flavour profiles and different flavonoids and terpenes in the plant, which is giving you a different flavour. So you could have plants maybe that'll taste totally of an orange, or you have another plant that'll taste of a mint. It's mind-blowing, the flavour profiles in some of these plants now, but this is how elaborate the industry is now. There's hundreds of thousands of strains out there, and some of the names now are just mind-blowing. I mean, Goggle Pop, and do you know what I mean? Some crazy names are coming up, and I don't know why they come up with them, because it's not relevant. Half the stuff in this.
What is Goggle Pop?
It's just want to pull it out of my head, but I would imagine there's some stranger ones than that.
But it's real.
No, I don't
Or
know.
you just made it up.
Quite probably, I didn't make it up.
Ah,
There,
right,
but I would
okay.
imagine if I look through the industry, that it probably does
Chances
exist.
are it's one of the 100,000 or
does
whatever
exist,
you just said.
yeah.
That's incredible. But yes, I mean, to me, I think that's so important for people to know, though, that there is different types, that they do have different amounts of THC, and even that the strain itself lends itself to either, as you say, either being kind of more alert or more relaxed. So you'd imagine, yes, if you're a really chill person and all you do is take, which one is it that relaxes you? Sorry, Indica.
Yeah.
So if you're a real chill person, like I'm pretty chill, right? If I just smoked, indica, right, all day, I get nothing done, right?
No, you would lose all motivation.
Right. So I'd be a mess. But if I smoked all sativa,
it'd be different. Yeah.
or I say all, let's just say, that if I wanted to smoke weed and I smoked sativa, that would make sense for me, because I could use a bit of a, what do you call it, pick me up sort of
So
version.
it'll give you a lot of focus, clarity, and it'll give you that creative edge that you want, and it would certainly in your industry, it'd be very good for sort of getting on with your day. There'd be no problem. It wouldn't hinder your day. A lot of people are under the misillusion that cannabis smokers are unmotivated and they don't want to do nothing. They just want to lie about their house and watch movies. It's a big misconception. I mean, I know people that smoke on a regular basis, and they probably work more hours than most people I know that don't smoke, and they're very hard workers. So it's all down again to balance. And again, like you're saying, the thing with different strains is, with no regulation, the younger ones can't pick these different strains, so they're just going to a local dealer in the black market and buying a bag of weed, and that's what they're getting. They're being told it's biscotti, or they're being told it's cookies, or they're being told it's a certain strain.
Goggle Pop.
They're being told it's a certain strain when they don't know it's that strain at all. They have no idea whether it's that strain at all.
Could be, what do you call that stuff you get in the jar in the cupboard? Flipping
sage.
Yeah, right.
That's it. There's so many, but it's not even that stuff coming out of Cali and America and stuff now. There's so much stuff filled with PGR. PGR is like a plant growth regulator. It's a hormone for plants. A lot of the nutrients for plants can be flushed out in the final stages, but the PGRs can't be flushed out. So these young ones are just smoking all this stuff and not realizing what the long-term problems are going to be coming of it. So there could be health problems coming from this in the long term. But again, through lack of regulation, they don't have the choice to go and choose this strain, that strain, or the other strain from a clean market. They have to just go and buy what the local dealer has in the black market, sadly, and that's what this is. It's being pushed on to people because of the legality of it recreationally.
Incredible. Such a shame. So I think we could keep talking all day on this, because honestly this is really fascinating. But for now, let's obviously do this again.
Cool.
ASAP. Where, Lee, do people find you who are listening online, or how do you get in touch if you want any
if you need
advice
to find
or
me,
information?
you can go to cannahealthcare.co.uk. All my contact details are on there, or obviously through Facebook or Instagram at CannaHealthcare. I'm handy enough to find that way. If you need any assistance at all, no matter how silly the question may sound, by all means contact me anytime.
And how do we find this podcast? Is it on Instagram, for example?
This podcast will be on Instagram, Spotify, and all the other platforms that you expect.
Awesome. Lee, thank you very much.
Thank you very
It was
much.
a real pleasure speaking to you.
And likewise, thanks for your time.
Watch the full video podcast on YouTube at Kaput Network.
We'd like to thank you for joining us for this week's episode. We'll catch you again soon for some more CannaChat. And remember, the real crime is knowing cannabis can help others, but doing nothing about it.